Do you wonder if you're the best version of yourself? This is the question we seek to answer in this podcast. We reveal information that helps you recover your health and become resilient. Modern life makes us fragile. Our diet, lifestyle, and environment set us up for failure. We do not accept this. We seek optimization. We strive to become dynamic. Hey, what's going on? Dr. Chris here. Today I want to talk about breathwork and how it can improve athletic performance or exercise tolerance. I was first introduced to this idea from Dr. Mike T. Nelson, who put together an amazing course called Physiologic Flexibility. I've talked a lot about this. I've built my own version of the course because I loved it so much. But the concept is that we have these 4 regulators of the body. I'm just going to talk about some of them today. The 4 are your pH, your CO2 and O2, your temperature, and your blood glucose. These are all super strictly, tightly regulated by the body. And if some of these things go off a little bit, some bad things typically happen, right? So, for example, blood glucose, at any given time, you only have about a teaspoon of sugar in your blood. You go to like a tablespoon and you're going to have some real issues. And the cool thing about these regulators is that if you play with them and push the envelopes and become a little more flexible in terms of what you can tolerate, that confers benefit to other domains, right? So, for example, if you improve your tolerance to cold through cold exposure like ice baths, it improves your blood glucose. But today, I just really want to go over the relationship that exists between CO2 and your pH, which can both be very easily influenced through breath work. The breathwork style that I'm talking about is Wim Hof breathing, which is kind of rapid, sort of hyperventilation type breathing followed by breath holds. So it looks like or sounds like so you're doing that rapid style breath, and what you're doing is you're pushing out a lot of CO2 out of your mouth and inhaling through your nose. So what that does is it tips the scale so you become hyper-oxygenated. When you have higher oxygen levels, you become more alkalinic, so your pH goes up. When you have higher levels of CO2, you become more acidotic, and your pH goes down. So the initial phase of Wim Hof breathing, that breath that I sort of did out loud, that puts you into a temporary state of respiratory alkalosis. And then after you do that rapid breathing, you do a breath hold, and that tips it the other way. So now your CO2 is starting to climb. One of the cool things, by the way, is because you've done that rapid breathing and hyperoxygenated, you can hold your breath way longer than normal. So now your CO2 is climbing and you're becoming more acidic. So this breathing style makes you kind of ping pong back and forth from respiratory alkalosis to respiratory acidosis. And this is what I was talking about with pushing the envelope. So if you're used to living in a very small window of pH and you're swinging kind of rapidly back and forth with your pH going low then high and high then low, then you get better at hitting those endpoints and tolerating it more. Now, there's something called the Bohr effect, which is a really important concept. So what that means is the higher your CO2 goes up, and the more you can tolerate it, the more oxygen gets sort of scrubbed off of the hemoglobin, just because of diffusion. Everyone thinks of CO2 as a waste product, but it's really a byproduct. It's an important part of the breathing cycle. It's not just waste. So if you can tolerate higher levels of CO2 in the bloodstream, that means more oxygen gets delivered to the muscle tissue. More oxygen to the muscle means better performance, more strength, more endurance. So now let's get into how there's this overlap between CO2 tolerance and pH tolerance. So when you exercise, you've probably heard of lactic acid, that buildup of burning you get. It's not actually lactic acid. So what the body is doing is taking glucose and it breaks it down into lactate and hydrogen ions. That's the byproduct. So hydrogen ions is just acid. So the burn you feel in your muscles when you start to get fatigued is hydrogen ions, not lactic acid. So as you incorporate breath work into your routine, and you do these big swings, and you're tolerating longer breath holds, you're becoming more acidic during those breath holds, and you're building your tolerance so your pH changes. This is what some people call the oxygen advantage. if you want to test your CO2 tolerance, it's really easy to do. There's something called the Bolt test. All right, so what you do is just breathe normally, and then when you exhale, just do a normal exhale, not a max exhale. You do a normal exhale, and then take your fingers and plug your nose and count. See how long you can go for. You stop as soon as you feel the first urge to breathe or some sort of reflex, sometimes your throat will constrict. That's when you stop the test. All right. If you have to take a big inhale at the end, that means you held your breath too long, so you might have to repeat the test. Anyways, see what that number is. 25 to 40 seconds is considered normal. If you're less than that, that tells you that you're either sensitive to CO2 or that you're in a very stressed state. So your CO2 tolerance will go down when you're under high levels of stress. The good news is it's pretty easy to train this and improve it. So Wim Hof breathing is just one way you can do it. Another technique to improve your CO2 tolerance is something called box breathing. Then there's lots of different styles of this, and there's an app called the Breath app or Breathe app, I can't remember which one, which is a free download, and you can set custom parameters for box breathing. And I like to combine it with something like walking, any kind of light aerobic work. So box breathing, like for example, if you do a 4-4-4-4, is a 4-second inhale followed by a 4-second breath hold followed by a 4-second exhale and then another 4-second hold and repeat. So all I'll do is I'll go for a walk, and when I start my shift I'll go around the building a couple times and I just count steps. I do a 4-step count, 4-step hold, 4-step exhale, 4-step hold again and repeat. Now I did that for about a month, maybe 2 to 3 times a week, and my brother challenged me to do something. My brother's in great cardiovascular shape, and he's living at this place, has this huge pool. It's at least Olympic, maybe even bigger. And for months he'd been trying to swim the whole length underwater without coming up for air. And he's like, go ahead and try it. I'm definitely nowhere near his cardiovascular fitness level. And I was like, no, there's no way I can do that. So anyway, so I was like, whatever, I'll give it a shot. So I jumped in and I swam the entire length without coming up. He was blown away, and I think it's only from this box breathing training I've been doing. So stuff works really well and really fast. All right, so I also want to just touch on a little bit of breathing dysfunction because it's so common, especially in this day and age when everybody has so much stress. When I have a new patient come in, I'll have them on my table and I watch how they breathe first. And I would say 9 out of 10 times they are chest dominant breathing. So belly breathing is associated with your parasympathetic nervous system, whereas chest breathing is more associated with your sympathetic system. So you can very quickly see what state someone's in just by how they're breathing. And to be clear, they both should rise during breathing. It's just which one's rising first. But the cool thing is this is a two-way street, so you can reverse engineer a state. So you can take somebody in a sympathetic state, and just by cueing them to belly breathe, so their belly rises on inhale and descends on exhale, if you cue that and they can figure out how to do that, because it's actually more challenging for some people than you'd imagine, then you can put them into a parasympathetic state. And you can kind of affect pain levels actually pretty quickly too with breath work. So just simply going into a parasympathetic state can be beneficial, because when you're in a sympathetic state, your body's in fight or flight, and it stiffens the muscles, and thinking that you're about to get into a fight. So going to parasympathetic can relax the muscular tone. The other thing that can cause pain is ischemia. So tissue ischemia means lack of oxygen to muscle tissues. We know this causes trigger points. So going back to the Bohr effect, the more CO2 that builds up, the more it delivers oxygen to the tissues. Right? So by improving your CO2 intolerance, you can get more oxygen to your muscle tissue and maybe counteract some of that tissue ischemia. So that's all I have for this week. Breath work is super interesting, really fun, and actually you can access deeper states of consciousness through breath work alone, and some interesting things happen there. If you are new to this and you want to learn more, we have a workshop coming up, a Wim Hof seminar, October 5th. We have Yuri Opendik coming to teach us again. He's fantastic. This is our 6th time doing it. Every time something interesting happens, and I always look forward to the seminar. I'll be sure to put a link to that seminar in the show notes. A ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are meant to do. What does this mean? It means exposing yourself to difficult situations so you become resilient. If you need help building resilience, check out our flagship program called Physiologic Flexibility. This is a 3-month do-it-yourself program that teaches you how to maximize your homeostatic regulators, such as your pH, blood glucose, O2 and CO2 tolerance, and temperature. We give you specific action items through the program with the goal of becoming anti-fragile. If you want to become the inspiration for your friends and family, this is the program for you.